We've covered a number of benefits when it comes to remote working in previous episodes. If you've missed any of them, I've included links below. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how to actually go about recruiting for your remote team. So stay tuned. Welcome to Build, brought to you by Pivotal Tracker. I'm your host, Purnima Vijay Shankar. In each episode, innovators and I debunk a number of myths and misconceptions related to building products, companies, and your career in tech. Remote working is becoming the wave of the future, and employers who have started embracing it are starting to see the competitive advantages. It's very attractive for employees. In today's episode, we're going to dive into the numerous benefits that employers and employees face when it comes to remote working, and we're going to talk about some of the best practices when it comes to recruiting and retaining employees. And to help us out, I've invited Holly Cardew, who is the CEO and founder of Pixie.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. You and I have experienced a number of benefits when it comes to running a remote team. For our audience out there, maybe you can share some of the benefits as an employer.
Running a company, a remote company, has been beneficial for us or beneficial for any employer because what you can do is you can scale up and scale down depending on what task you need done. You can also hire from a global pool of talent rather than a local one. We can also provide customer support 24/7 and in other languages, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It's also great because as a company, we're flexible. If something goes down or something happens on the weekend, the employees or the team members can also jump online. They're not so constricted to a specific time.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a number of benefits for the employees, so let's jump into those.
I think for the employees, they love it because it is flexible. At the end of the day, they can live and travel and be wherever they want to. They can work the hours that they want to work. I don't expect someone to be there 9 to 5. I didn't want to build a company and be in an office 9 to 5. The employees don't have to necessarily spend an hour and a half in traffic each way every day, so they can spend that time really focusing on their task at hand.
Yeah. Another thing I learned recently was that people who are disabled or even an elderly population can stay in the workforce longer because of having the ability to work remotely. So I think that's another great thing if we can keep maintaining the size of the workforce.
Fantastic. I think that I've also seen that with mothers. So we've hired, content writers, proofreaders, they're mothers in Middle America or the Philippines, it doesn't matter where they are, they're now able to be with their children before and after school, be really flexible.
Yep. Yeah, we've got one, Megan, who's been on an episode before. So yeah, I think it's great for motherhood as well. So these are great benefits. Let's talk about the types of roles that are conducive to remote work.
I actually think anything can be remote.
Yeah.
There are definitely times when there are people, you need to be on the ground with the customer or you need to build a physical product if you're in hardware or, other industries. But really, we have, I don't like to use the word outsource, but we have had people doing legal, accounting, bookkeeping, engineering tasks, design tasks, customer service, marketing, you name it, it's been done with us. So I think you can actually use a remote or distributed team for any job.
But I'm sure there's some employees who are better suited for remote work versus others. So tell us what somebody should be looking for in an employee.
Yeah, definitely. I find that the people who are most proactive and take initiative are the ones who are better off when they're remote because they don't need the guidance or the team around them to keep them motivated. I also find that someone who is slightly entrepreneurial, I had someone who was in the Philippines and I said, what do you do in your free time? And she said, I import things from America and I sell them at the market on the weekend. And doing that, it makes them think outside the box as well. You don't have to train them as much.
Yeah, that makes sense. And are there signs that you want to watch out for?
The signs I would watch out for are people who do need to be around others and they do need that guidance and training and they're waiting for the next you to tell them the next thing to do.
So people who maybe aren't as self-directed or possess some of the self-leadership qualities.
Definitely.
Which I think is necessary for any employee, but...
Definitely. But there are people who are starting out and they're not used to, taking initiative to go find something. They're used to turning to the person next to them at the office or at university or wherever they're starting out and finding the answer.
Yeah, that's a good point. So being proactive about being resourceful and getting the answers that you need on your own.
Especially if they're remote and, I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
And, another team member's not awake, so they can't get help that way.
That's a good point. So do you have a set of criteria for sourcing candidates that fit?
We have quite I wouldn't say strict, but a process that we follow every single time. Essentially, we always hire a contract straight away. The reason for that is because we don't have to onboard them for every single task. So what we do is we put out simple things. When we put out the job, people nowadays are applying for absolutely everything. They just click the apply button. So we'll put some sneaky question inside the job, even if it's start your cover letter with a smiley emoji. And then you can clearly filter out the people who have read the job description, because when you're remote, there's a lot of reading rather than face-to-face conversation.
Right.
So that filters down some people. And then we make a short list and we interview and just have a Skype call about 10 to 15 minutes. In 10 to 15 minutes, you can figure out if you're going to, if they culturally fit with the company. I think that's really important. They may be the most amazing person on paper, but if they don't fit with your remote culture, it won't work. And then we give them a trial task. And then after that, if they're successful, we hire them for approximately 2 weeks to a month to figure out how it works with the company. And then we scale up from there.
Yeah. The trial task is one that I do too. I call it a test project, and I time box it to about 5 to 10 hours. I limit it to maybe the 2 people that I feel have gone through the interview and done a good job, and I actually end up paying them for
that's
that
exactly
trial
what we do.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. So we also do a trial task about 5, depending on the role. So if it's a social media thing, it might be, give me 20 posts that you would post up, or some advice on what you would change on our current social media. But if it's an engineering project, it would be 5 to 10 hours, maybe a page, and pay for that task, and then decide from there.
Yeah, and how do you kind of communicate that to them? Because I know some people immediately are like, I'm not doing this. And then some people actually take the effort, and I can tell, just based on that, who's going to be a good employee versus, okay, clearly you're not interested. So do you start to see signals like that?
We've definitely had the same thing.
Okay.
It's sort of like a self-filtering mechanism.
Right.
For us, I think most people who have already, if they're local and they haven't had a remote job yet, they're probably a bit standoffish.
Okay.
But most people who are freelance or have worked remote, they are used to that.
And then there are some people that think remote working is for them, even though they've never done it before. So like you said, someone who's new to remote working, and they might not know the criteria. Do you have any filters or ways in which you recruit them?
What we have looked at is that if people are entrepreneurial, they usually have done some small task by themselves. The other one is I asked if they've done any side projects, and I asked them to show me their side projects. Like, what do they do in their free time on the weekend? If they don't do something that is slightly work related, engineers might build something. Right. Marketing people might start their own website to self-promote. So I look for those things before hiring someone who hasn't had a remote job. If they have started, it's really about trial and error and talking to them, talking through. I have friends who are definitely, they say straight up, I need to be around people.
Okay, yeah.
The other option is you could actually provide them with co-working space. So in some situations, I've either provided them with co-working space, or there was another situation where I had someone in Manila and I knew the people at the Uber office in Manila. So I made a connection for her to go meet with the community manager at Manila so she could learn from them. And then it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to have the people in your company around them. They just need inspiration.
Nice.
From other people.
And that's a good point, because it does get lonesome, and coffee shops don't always have the best internet. So the co-working could be great. Hiring sight unseen can be challenging. I know when I initially did it, I wasn't as good, but over the years I've gotten better. How have you managed to get the best candidates out of the pool?
I think going back to my previous question is that my previous answer is that really it's about the cultural fit for the person. If your values and the culture doesn't fit, it won't work. I had someone who I was interviewing and they were so good. I really wanted them. They were an early employee at a huge company that's IPO'd. It would have been really beneficial for the company, but we didn't see eye to eye on growing the team. We discussed how we would grow the team and how we would go about it. and it did not fit. And even though it wasn't an issue then and there, I could foresee going forward that it would be a huge issue when we wanted to expand the team. So it was really about the values. The other thing is that you really need to trust your gut. At the beginning, you're early on, you're starry-eyed, you think everything's amazing and you just want to get these people on board. But deep down, if you know that it's not going to work,
Right.
don't do it.
So one nugget in there was having those crucial conversations, right? You said you had the conversation about how they were going to approach hiring and you didn't start to see eye to eye. So maybe when it comes to the tasks or whatever the next milestone is, have those conversations, and that way you start to uncover what their philosophy is to see if there's alignment and a good fit.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like any relationship. You need to be able to have a hard conversation. And sometimes you don't, as a CEO, what's really challenging is you don't actually get along with everyone perfectly. But it's, as long as you can have a hard conversation and come to a conclusion, then it's okay. But if something really doesn't fit in your values,
better to expose that early on.
Exactly, and move on rather than try and make it fit at the beginning.
Well, these are great practices, Holly. Thanks for sharing them with us.
Thanks for having me.
So now Holly and I want to know, if you have put a remote team in place, what was your process for recruiting? Let us know in the comments below. And that's it for this week's episode of Build. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to receive the next episode, where we'll talk about how to hold employees accountable and retain them. Ciao for now. This episode of Build is brought to you by our main sponsor, Pivotal Tracker. We'd also like to thank our Platinum Patreon patrons, Corky Bites, The Developer Show, and Jamie Hand. Finally, thanks to the following new patrons. If you've enjoyed watching Build, please consider becoming a patron and contributing on Patreon at www.patreon.com/build. You can pledge $5 a month or more, and your pledges will go towards helping us produce and promote the show. In exchange, you'll receive perks like being mentioned in the credits, digital copies of our latest book, and Platinum patrons will receive exclusive perks like monthly online group coaching, where I provide more hands-on coaching on a number of topics related to entrepreneurship and leadership. To find out more and contribute, please visit www.patreon.com/build.